What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the second album by singer-songwriter Adele. Basically, this project is called 21 and it came out in the winter of 2011. The thing about this particular project is this is a huge smash hit of a project here. Definitely a classic album of the 2010s decade. I would definitely have to say it was pretty much like the highest selling album out of the year 2011 and 2012 as far as pitches like that kind of happened. I want to say not too many albums can do 2 years back to back and be the highest selling album. It's a pretty good pitch. Multi platinum is a diamond selling album, which did not happen much past like the early 2000s, I'd have to say. So it was a big deal. Adele basically took the world by storm with this particular album. Just had multiple hits, had at least three number ones on the Billboard 100 in the United States, I'd have to say. Five singles off this particular product. It's only 11 songs on here, so it's a pretty good pitch to kind of get that. But there are some ones I am going to review the deluxe edition with 3 extra songs. Makes me want to track down at least one of those deluxe type songs. But yeah, this is definitely a classic album. I'll just go ahead and say just the monolith type appeal of this particular product's pretty huge. Adele was pretty ubiquitous and had the Midas touch back in 2011, 2012. This was a pretty good pitch. I need to check out her album 19 as far as pitches like that going to happen. I do own 25 and 30 in this one. So it is a pretty good concept going to get some of these. But yeah, I've yet to review Adele on this particular channel, but I do enjoy her music quite a bit. So it's kind of the concept. It's time to kind of get to some of these and see what's up with some of these in particular. It's just an excellent type concept. But yeah, a lot of this particular music was a staple on the radio. A lot of this type of music was a staple on pop radio and pitches like that, just standard radio in general between like just throughout late 2010, 2011, 2012, just the early 2010s was pretty unanimous with this particular sound of multiple Adele songs. Chances are if it wasn't like someone like Florence and the Machine or Adele, some of those type folks, at least from like European pop music, it just was probably, yeah, just chances are it was one of them as far as pitches like that kind of happen. Just pretty unanimous, like I was saying, just good concept kind of get some that I just look after like the aspect. I mean, this particular album, this is like a defining type one. I don't know if like 25 is considered as much like a full blown classic. That was a pretty widespread. That album went diamond as well when that came out in 2015, which was another big deal just because apart from Taylor Swift, there really weren't too many folks that were going diamond. So it was just Adele and Taylor Swift as far as pitches like that kind of happened. But I look after it. This was, yeah, this is pretty much like Adele is pretty much one of the biggest artists out of the 2010s, I'd have to say. And the thing about it is she only dropped 2 albums out of that particular decade. So it's just the concept of every time she drops, it's just like when you would get like a Beatles record or a Rolling Stones record, something like that, or an AC/DC record, one of those type ones that this was always kind of like makes front page news damn near when that particularly happens, at least in music. This kind of happens to be a thing. Yeah, there were 5 singles off this particular project, I'd have to say, and 3 of them hit number one. One of which was a top. One of the remaining 2 singles was a top 20 single, and then Turning Tables was a good song, but it didn't chart as heavily, but still pretty nice follow up to round out the album. So Rolling in the Deep was the lead single. This is definitely a defining type one. The first 3 singles, the 3 singles that hit number one, Rolling in the Deep, Someone Like You, and Set Fire to the Rain, all 3 of these songs have over 1 billion plays on Spotify as far as pitches like that kind of happen. So that should tell you just about the overall appeal of this project. But yeah, Rolling in the Deep is definitely like a defining kind of 2010s rhythmic pop smash of a song, I'd have to say. In particular, it's like an anthemic and kind of lofty venue loud pack, I would have to say. Some definitely good concepts for that, and this is a pretty good radio staple. So I look after it just being able to say definitely for like Brit pop and pitches like that, not just Brit pop, but just in general, just the appeal of this particular type song was pretty good just in general because this has like coffee shop type appeal towards it. A lot of these songs, I feel like at least Rolling in the Deep and Rumor Has It, some of those type ones, and He Won't Go, those in particular. There are some Adele kind of pops, there are some Adele kind of jivey type songs. This is mostly like a morose type album. There's a lot of songs on here that have like the composition of songs like Set Fire to the Rain and Someone Like You, Turning Tables, some of those type ones. I really like that morose type of feel. It really feels like kind of like a Brit pop kind of folksy. Really feels like a Brit pop kind of coffee shop type variation of like 3 6 Mafia type sound. And kind of a wild comparison, but for pop music, there weren't tons of real pop artists doing this sort of moroseness. Adele was in a pretty dark place on this particular album, and she shines through this with the character of it. This is an album that has gloom on here. It's ruminating like Eminem did back in like the early 2000s and late 90s as far as pitches like that kind of happen. Adele has demons on this particular project, and it just works pretty well as far as that kind of goes. It's not necessarily demons, it's more of just breakout type pitches as far as that kind of goes. But just the concept of like the aspect of just being able to have that relative appeal, just within the aspect of like the compellingness of conveying it in the music, I would have to say. So it's an excellent type concept. But yeah, all these particular ones hit pretty heavily. It's like the overall brooding typeness and just sheer gloss of a lot of these, I'd have to say. But yeah, Rolling in the Deep was definitely a huge lead single. Definitely set the tone for the album. Someone Like You is the second single. This is a nice one. This is like one of those ones I was talking about that's a real haunting type one. It's like a haunting kind of winter brush of a song, I'd have to say. It's like some brooding kind of wind. It's like some brooding Traverse makeshift, I would feel like. And this is like another heavy radio staple, I'd have to say. And this song in particular pretty much glows. This would have to say some excellent type concepts get here. This is probably one that most folks have probably heard at this stage in some fashion. This is just one, if you leave on pop radio for long enough, this is a song that pretty much pops up pretty often. Like Rolling in the Deep's another staple for that sort of tone. Basically, there's not, I mean, because all three of the first singles hit number one, it's just kind of a concept that most of these are pretty interchangeable. Although I don't hear Set Fire to the Rain as oftenly as anymore. I still look after just being able to say that these songs are just continued highlights, just the throwback to 2010, 2011, 2012, as far as that kind of goes. It's early, when you think of the early 2010s, Adele is a big component of that, and some of these just really work pretty well. But I do feel like Someone Like You really has like some 3-6 Mafia-esque feels, just some pitches like that. Just being able to say, just for pop, it was definitely pretty awesome to kind of get some of that haunting typeness, because Katy Perry wasn't doing that, Lady Gaga wasn't doing that, Taylor Swift wasn't really doing that, Beyonce wasn't really doing that, folks like that. Aaliyah wasn't really Aaliyah wasn't doing that. Just folks of that relative nature to some other folks. I mean, I guess you, in some senses, you could say Avril Lavigne kind of did that somewhat, but not nearly with like the boisterous kind of chart appeal. I'd have to say it's a relative concept I look after. That's kind of the thing. But Set Fire to the Rain was the third single. Once again, this is kind of a more seldom type song nowadays. I mean, it was probably played a whole bunch like 15. It's probably played a whole bunch like 12, 13, 14 years ago as far as pitches like that kind of happen. This is a nice one that's kind of more. This did hit number one. It's another song that got over 1 billion plays on Spotify. Just has the relative appeal. Just kind of one of those type ones. Like when you think of Michael Jackson getting multiple number ones off of Thriller, there's some ones that don't get as oftenly as spins. Most of the time it's like Beat It or Billie Jean or Thriller, some of those type ones. But he did actually, I want to say, have more than even 3 number ones, but Adele definitely did it here. This is like some continued kind of haunting glimmer and like a half rainy day type of feel. I feel like this is one of those songs where it's kind of rainy out, but also kind of in like the sunlight. It's just kind of a haphazard type day where it's kind of half rain, half sun, as far as pitches like that can happen. Just good appeal about that. It's like this song's definitely like some pop radio dynamite, I'd have to say, and this is like some standard regular makeshift, I'd have to say. So a good concept for that. Standard work shift type fare, Starbucks type commerce pitches like that, coffee shop type appeal, Panera Bread, some of those type pitches is a good concept. It's real composed, it's work a day as far as that particular kind of happens. But I do like the doomed kind of appeal of a lot of these. But to switch the tone a little bit back to the way it was on Rolling in the Deep, as rumor has it, this is a nice one. This has a little bit more bounce than Rolling in the Deep, not quite as defining, but it has some more relative type thump to kind of get here as far as pitches like that kind of happen. This is like a booming kind of night venue loud pack, I'd have to say in particular. This is like some jivey step out and groove, I would definitely have to say. This reminds me of Florence and the Machine, I would have to say. So it's a good concept kind of get that. It's the same sort of appeal. I don't know a ton about Florence and the Machine, so I don't know some of their biggest hits, but it makes me want to check them out because I want to say that the lead singer, the chick on that particular song, has similarities to Adele just within that relative pitch. Maybe they toured together, something like that. I don't know how full blown they know of each other just within that relative type pitch, but they have similarities, I'd have to say. So it's a good concept to kind of get some of that. Some good Brit pop and just overall pitches like that is really, this is definitely like some loud pack for like coffee shop type appeal pitches like that, I'd have to say. I don't want to say blue blood, but it's just a little bit more suave and like the composure of it. I just like the concept where Adele is definitely loosened up on this particular song. She's at least stepping out and having some jive about her, but still the composure about this song is just more tight knit compared to like standard like pop that you would hear just around that was circa 2010s and pitches like that. So it's like Adele is loosened up, but still tight knit for like standard pop or just the standard appeal of like particular songs that have that relative aspect about it. So that's this kind of thing. But I do like this concept of Adele kind of coming down to earth a little bit to see some of this. Good concept. And then Turning Tables is the 5th single, and this takes it back to Set Fire in the Rain and Someone Like You type pitches. I'd have to say it's like an excellent kind of ghastly follow-up to Someone Like You, I would definitely have to say. It's too bad this song didn't chart much heavier. It would have been the concept. This is another highlight just off this particular album, I'd have to say. It's like some superb kind of winter brush and work shift haze, I'd have to say about this song. So a lot of this album works pretty damn well for like the winter. I'd have to say definitely some winter commerce pitches like that. Just some good, this frosty kind of days, and this the aspect of just being out and about with like the colder weather and crisper weather. I'd suppose great for November, January, February, some of those type of appeals. Just would have to say Turning Tables just has another morose type piano type beat that works pretty heavily, I'd have to say. I do like a lot of this ghastliness and hauntingness on this particular album. Makes me question some of her later albums kind of did that. But yeah, there's 14 songs on the deluxe edition, and out of those 14 I wound up recommending 11. Out of the standard edition I wound up recommending 10 out of 11. So this album's going to get a 10 out of 10. It's just a supreme highlight, I would have to say. Just a good concept classic album out of the early 2010s and 2010s decade in general, and just pretty much like damn near just a great, probably one of the GOAT albums. I think Rolling Stone has put this album in like the 500 greatest albums of all time, and it definitely belongs in that list. I'd have to say this has a lot of appeal, impactful culture shocks and pitches like that. Just was a significant culture item as far as pitches like that kind of happen. So I look after the only real song I don't recommend in any fashion on the standard edition would just be One and Only. Talk about that one. That one's just kind of, I just didn't like the composition and production values of One and Only. I'd have to say it was just kind of more of like, this one was just kind of more of like a gospel one. This more of like a Sunday type song to kind of get in particular. It just didn't have like the particular appeal that was really necessary on that particular song. It's pretty much like the only real song on the standard edition that just doesn't have like some sort of dynamite just overall aesthetic and impact. I'd say, but it's not to say it's a bad song. It's just one I didn't connect with as much. It's just the concept that this album really, the accuracy of it's pretty high. But then on the deluxe edition, the two songs, I only recommend one of the songs on the deluxe that includes the three other songs, and that song would be I Found a Boy, which is a pretty nice pitch. But the other two songs, Hiding My Heart and If It Hadn't Been for Love, these particular two ones are just more folksy type ones, just acoustic type licks on there. I think Adele can play the guitar, something like that. Want to say that she possibly can. I like the concept, but the riffage on these particular ones, or at least the acoustic licks as to how these kind of went, these just feel like more Sunday type music and like a more laid back, just kind of golden summer day. With the aspect behind it, I just feel like the overall production value on I Found a Boy just tramples all over these two extra type ones. It's kind of the concept just didn't have the same appeal about it. Just was not as engaging, those two extra ones, I'd have to say. But at least I do feel like I Found a Boy is like an extra. I do feel like I Found a Boy is like an extra kind of dynamite highlight that just has a lot of appeal, and it's worth tracking down the deluxe or the iTunes deluxe to be able to get that particular song. So it is worth it. I actually didn't know about that song until very recently, is what I have to say. So yeah, but to talk about I Found a Boy, basically this is like a glistening kind of summer haze. I would have to say in particular, it's like a bonus cut worth tracking down. I would definitely have to say it's like a nice, moody, folksy kind of ambience about this song. It's a pretty good gem, I'd have to say. So just overall like the appeal of this particular one. It's an extra type cut. I mean, I understand it not being on the standard package, but it makes me question about some of the other songs that Adele wrote for this particular album. Just wondering the composition, because the thing about the extra songs on here is they're all acoustic and more folksy related. So it just makes me question if she had any more songs like Set Fire to the Rain or like He Won't Go, some of those type ones. Rumor Has It, Rolling in the Deep, or Someone Like You, some of those type pitches, I'd have to say would have been a good concept. But still, I think she should probably do something like Amy Winehouse did and kind of put out like a bonus package of like the B-sides or some of that type. It would be an interesting concept. But just because it's really like pulling teeth trying to get more music from Adele. I think everyone knows this by this particular stage. It's this kind of concept, but it'd be good to get like some B-sides and unreleased, like a compilation type project, something like that. But yeah, the those extra songs I do feel like I Found a Boy is definitely a pretty good gem. Some of these extra type ones on here, some of these album cuts on here, basically, if you like songs like Rumor Has It and Rolling in the Deep, He Won't Go is a pretty nice one for that. It's like a pouty kind of rhythmic night commerce of a song, I'd have to say. This definitely has like some brushy kind of standard demon time type step out appeal, I would definitely have to suppose. It's like an in-between kind of extra thoughts type song. So this one doesn't fit the composition of most of this album. There's a couple of songs on here that kind of feel that way. Like I feel like Love Song and He Won't Go are some different pitches and just different casts of kind of altitude as far as that particular kind of goes. Most of this is like in the standard morose breakup type appeal, just like the aspect of that sort of standard makeshift and just the commerce of this the gloomid type feeling, I'd have to say. But this is just a good aspect to kind of get some of this just some good sultry kind of rhythmic outing as far as pitches like that kind of happen. I just like the concept of this particular one. It has some good bounce about it. Take It All is a pretty nice one. This probably could have been a single, I'd have to say. It's like a gloomid kind of pop ballad, I would feel like. This has single potential, like I was saying, definitely pretty good appeal about that. This reminds me of like When I Was Your Man by Bruno Mars, the second single off of his Unorthodox Jukebox album. This song, somber vibe, has spark about it, I would definitely have to say, and it's like a workaday kind of rainy day commerce, I would have to say. So this song goes well with like Set Fire to the Rain, I'd have to suppose. Definitely some good car traverse pitches like that for like some standard kind of just gloom ruminating, I'd have to suppose. This good concept for that relative type of appeal. A lot of this is just pretty interchangeable. This is a very affable project just because the concept that it makes like music that's not in like a glistening and just overall kind of just balmy type mood that just is like happy go lucky. It had to say it just has the appeal behind it. I mean, Adele has traces that on this particular album, but I do like these morose type ones actually work pretty well as far as that pitch kind of happens. This is one of those albums that just has like the spark of just like the concept of it being a rainy day and kind of more morose type album, but it pulls off the ability to kind of do it just with all these number ones and just the aspect of just the melodies and the overall execution and the accuracy of how it was able to do it. Good stuff. Don't You Remember is a pretty nice one. It's like a folksy kind of outback late day sun gazing of a song, I'd have to say. It's like a basic relaxer and this like a nice mild summer frolic of a song, I'd have to say, and the song charms pretty well. So I feel like about this one, this is another folksy type one. I feel like there are some ones like that on here. I feel like some of these do have more appeal than others. Love Song's a pretty nice one for that. I Found a Boy is a pretty nice one for that, but it's a concept to be able to have. There are a few mild traces of summer on this particular project. I kind of feel like Adele can kind of do summer. She's not as, I haven't really listened to 19 that well or 25 or 30 that well. Some of her later albums or earlier albums, I'd have to say, is really like the only full blown album I know basically front to back damn near, I'd have to say, if I look after it. It feels, she feels less oriented towards summer. I feel like the concept, you know, when I know her more for her morose type tone, just seeing her in a more peppy type light, it's the same thing I feel like with Avril Lavigne, just the concept when you get used to her in like the autumn and winter brush, some of those type tones, seeing her in a different light when she's not like, I mean, Adele is not emo like Avril Lavigne is, but just the concept of her not being kind of more bloodletting in that sort of aspect. It's just a different tone when she's actually not in a foul mood. It's just an interesting type concept, but you just look after it. Some of these type ones, I mean, Don't You Remember still is within a ruffled type aspect, but it's at least the concept that's a little bit more folksy and just summer frolicking. So another similar song like that is not as morose as Love Song, I'd have to say. It's like some wine and dine kind of evening kickback, I'd have to say. Pretty nice one for that. It's like a golden kind of summer hazer, I would have to say. It's like a simp and chit. The song's like a simp and chit chat kind of song. I'd have to say pretty good concept for that. And it's like some ambient kind of enjoy the heat type songs. This is one I do like the summer appeal of this. If Adele would have pushed this album a lot further, I probably would have chosen this one as like the seventh single. I probably would have said that like probably Take It All could have been the sixth single after Turning Tables. Then I probably would have chosen Love Song as the seventh one to kind of wrap things up. Just I pretty much damn near just the classic appeal of this particular album. There are ones maybe they wouldn't have hit number one, but I do feel like Take It All probably could have been like a top 40 single, something like that would have been a nice concept. Maybe Love Song would have rounded out the album with the same appeal as Turning Tables, something like that. But I just look at it, just some extra type concepts kind of get. Definitely like some Summer Haze. This feels Latin pop kind of tinge as far as pitches like that kind of happen. Just overall like the laid back kind of glistening type of feel. This is great for vacation pitches like that. And then I'll Be Waiting is another nice bop on here, I'd have to say. This is kind of an out in the wind, kind of basic, typical day, kind of makeshift, I'd have to say. Another nice one that goes well with Rolling in the Deep, Set Fire to the Rain, some of those type ones, just in a more peppy type tone. This like a feeling good kind of change of pace from like the swampness of this particular album. So this is one kind of like in the same kind of good mood type pitch as He Won't Go, some of those type ones. Not as romantic as Love Song, but just a good concept of just like the out and about, just standard fare that's just not in the standard doom type aspect of most of this album. That's it. So it's this good pitch kind of have that, but it is some standard makeshift just for like another album cut type fare if you bought the album or just, you know, look, just if you've listened to most of the main songs off this particular album, it's just an extra type cut to kind of get with like some optimism, I'd have to say. So good stuff there. But yeah, this album gets a 10 out of 10, I would have to say. The social score, I'm probably going to go ahead and give the social score like a 10 out of 10 as well. I just feel like all these songs hit particularly heavily, I'd have to say. The aspect behind it, I do like the moroseness of this particular project. Like I said, it really has that spark of being able to nail it. Just the compellingness of making some, just the compellingness of being blue and glum and being able to still nail it just within that aspect and be able to pull it off as far as that particular kind of goes. This was basically like a miniature kind of album like Thriller from way back in the early 80s, just the same aspect of an impactful kind of dynamite type album that had more than one number one, three number ones on here, and like five singles that pretty much 4 out of 5 of them were top 20 singles, I'd have to say. So it's an excellent type concept. Definitely some good makeshift to kind of get, some good winter brush, some pitches like that, some romantic type songs, even some up tempo type ones. I do like the coffee shop and kind of loud night venue type sense, this restaurant type fare, some of that type ness. Maybe not like a dance club type smash, but I look after just within the aspect of like Step Out, just more kind of, I'd have to say, in more aloof and kind of more elite Step Out. I'd have to say some songs like Rolling in the Deep, Rumor Has It, some of those type ones, possibly like Set Fire to the Rain, some of those type pitches just have the appeal to like some good outing type fare just within the aspect. So it has traces of being outing, but the aspect behind it definitely nails the makeshift side of things. And I feel like the outing side of things has enough on here to be able to do that as well. So it's a good concept. This has the moves for the pitches of what needs to be. So in terms of the future, like Adele hasn't put out an album since 2021. It's kind of unknown at this stage as to when the next one's going to come out, and I don't know what she would label that album. Be interesting. I don't know if she would call it 34 or 35, some pitches like that. It's just kind of the concept. We'll have to see what kind of happens with that. I look after. I mean, this is kind of like a quiet spell for Adele right now. I'd have to suppose just the concept of being able to try to figure out what she's been up to. I mean, she's been on Instagram and pitches like that, but just in terms of like the actual aspect of her kind of putting out some new music, for the most part, she only typically puts out maybe 2 albums per decade. We've already gotten one of those, so this would be the concept. Maybe it'll be 2026 or 2027, something like that. It's just kind of the concept, but yeah, this is definite classic album. I'd have to say, just looking after the aspect behind it. I look after like the pitch of just the impact of what this particular did. Like I said, this is the defining album of the 2010s. Definitely one. If you're looking just to read up on 2010s culture, just know some noteworthy type ones. One of the most wave making type ones to kind of get. This is definitely one of those. So I recommend this easily and quite a bit, I'd have to say.